Sasstastic Life with hosts Trisha Rivas and Wendy Fredrigo.
Hello, we are back, and Beth Shelton is in the house.
Woo-hoo! Thanks for having me.
Woo-hoo, the cookie queen.
Yes, thank you. Thank
the
you.
cookie queen,
Yes.
amongst many, many other things.
I'll take that as one of the titles.
of the queen.
Yes. And it's, well, speaking of being a queen, it's International Women's Day. So
And I'm a woman,
And
so
you're
it's
a woman,
perfect.
so-
You are a woman. Yes.
Yeah.
we
it's
found
perfect.
you walking in the neighborhood and thought, let's just
There's
pull her
one.
in.
There's one in the wild. Bring her
There
in.
is one gorgeous woman. Let's bring her on the show. I have to share, though, this morning I texted Wendy first thing in the morning. I'm like, how exciting is this that we get to have Beth on today? Truly, we were so excited. And it just happens to fall on this day. And we're so excited to share all of the amazing things, but also the hard shit
Mhm.
that you have overcome and you talk so freely about.
Yes.
So thank you.
Well, I woke up feeling the same way.
Good.
So thank you for having me. I love to talk about fun stuff and hard stuff and all the in-between stuff. And it's all connected, isn't it?
Oh,
all goes
my
together.
goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in the public eye a lot.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times when you're in the public eye, people just assume, oh, their life is great. They
Yeah.
don't have any problems.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it must be nice. So,
Yeah, it's a good thing that stacks up for me. It's a good thing I don't have any problems at all.
right?
Yeah.
We haven't either. Zero.
No, exactly. Well, and when we were talking about what we wanted to talk with you is that you have had a rough 3 years. I mean,
Mhm.
you really have, and it just has seemed like it's been piled on one thing after another. And from what we have seen, you have handled it with so much grace and love. And I know that things are different behind closed doors because we have all had those experiences. But like Wendy said, when you're in the public eye, how does that feel? How do you handle that?
Mhm. I think there have been parts of my seasons that I handled it well, and sometimes I didn't handle it well. Oftentimes I had the, ability to sort of hide it or do it behind closed doors, which is, by the grace of God. But there were moments I kind of refer to it as my Britney Spears moment, my meltdown, because I did it in one of the chairs in your salon, where I
Yes.
came in. If people that knew me 3 years ago know that I looked really different, right? I had very long straight hair, and I came in one day and I'm like, take it off, like, all the way. And the poor lady that was cutting it, she goes, well, like, how short? And I'm like,
Amanda.
clippers short. She's like, oh honey, I can't. And I was like, do it. Give me the clippers, So like that was my mental state. Like just
Yeah.
if we kind of like harken back to Britney Spears, and her kind of meltdown. That was the fall of 2020. So I was kind of 6 months into probably what was the hardest season of life that I've ever endured.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think being in the public eye is challenging in that people do often think, almost entirely because of either social media or how you look, something with how you look, that you have it all together, either because you have a title, or we were even talking about body image, right? Like
Yes.
there's moments where maybe if I was at my leanest, people might think, oh, that lady has it together. She looks a certain way. And in fact, when I'm at my leanest, I am not at my healthiest, right? There was a time where I was not taking care of my body. I was not eating. And in fact, I was in probably the worst mental shape of my life. But on the outside, you just can't see that. So the things we uphold in society as this is the epitome, this is what it means to have it together. It's such a facade. It's such a facade.
And you guys tell me too, but I honestly think it's even harder for you though, because you are with the Girl Scouts. You
Mhm.
are with these young women every day and going through that and then having to show up a certain way instead of just pulling the covers over your head and calling it good. Did you ever have those days where it's just like, oh my goodness gracious, I can't do this anymore?
Absolutely. I had those days. I think I have had, the great, enormous gift of being surrounded by a really supportive team.
Yes.
Whether that meant board of directors, whether it meant the staff that I work with. And we have always had a philosophy that not everyone's going to show up 100% every day. There are times where I show up 120%, really, and they know it. But there were days where I showed up at 70%, and it all sort of evens out. And knowing that I had that safety net There's no way that I would have made it through without that, and offering that grace to the rest of my colleagues as well, and my peers and my friends, because there's no way. I mean, as human beings, the expectation that you could walk through the doors and not carry with you your humanity is absurd. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO
Yes.
or if you're an entry level employee. It doesn't matter. The fact that we sort of expect people to take off their humanity is ridiculous, especially in hard times. Now, people carry hard times for all sorts of reasons. We kind of collectively carried hard times in 2020 and then beyond, because of what was happening in the world and the pandemic. But the notion that people could show up and when you walk through the doors, you don't carry that, that's absurd.
Yeah.
And I think that by the grace of God, we somehow built this culture and this team dynamic before the pandemic where we could really show up for each other and show some of that grace. So luckily they showed me a lot of that grace on the days I wasn't 100%,
Mhm. Well, and I think that goes to show what a strong leader you are too, though, to have that transparency and to just be honest that I am not going to show up 100% every day. I'm literally going through shit.
Right.
I might not even show up at 70%. You know what? I might not even show up today. I
Right.
might be at home.
Right.
And for you to have, again, that grace, not only for yourself, but for your team, that honestly says a lot, Beth, because a lot of people don't have that support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about the shit, but now that you can look back at the shit and you
Mhm.
are in a good season, what are like the top 2 or 3 things you feel like you learned from that?
Yeah.
Because we go through hard shit, and I feel like we're supposed to go through it to teach us a lesson and then to help others who are maybe in that season. So what would you say are like your top takeaways or lessons from it now that you're on the other side?
I really had to learn to take care of myself, but that's such a cliche answer because it could be like a bumper sticker, right? Like
Yeah.
prioritize self-care. But it's like, what does that mean?
Yes.
And I'm gonna butcher the quote. It's not gonna be exactly right. But Leo Tolstoy had some great, really brilliant quote that we can Google later and put in the show notes,
Yes.
But it was really about, instead of doing all of these intricate things to try to solve life's problems, just stop doing the bad thing that's hurting you. And it was this it's so poignant and true. There were bad things in my life that I had to stop doing. Some of them were, control the controllable. Some of them were things I could control. Like for me, I had to stop drinking alcohol. I'm 563 days sober, which is amazing.
Good job.
And not
That's
everyone
amazing.
has to stop doing that. For me, I had to stop doing it. But in just that one subject, there were so many things I tried to do to be healthy and whole instead of cutting out the one thing that was really harming me, right? So I would work out every day. I would read books. I would listen to podcasts. I would feed my mind. I would eat good food, but I wouldn't stop intaking alcohol every single day. And so cutting out the one bad thing for me and for my mental health, that was so productive. But the toxic hard thing is different for other people. It's also relationships. We have kind of 3 choices when we have hard things. Number 1, can you just get over it? There are a lot of things, if we really address what's happening with our egos, that we can just get over. If you can't get over it, can you remove yourself? And there are a lot of things that we can remove ourselves from. Sometimes it's a workplace. Sometimes it's a relationship. Sometimes it's a situation. Sometimes it's a situationship.
Yes.
And 3, if you can't get over it and you can't remove yourself, then create a solution. Like those are your 3 choices. And my new favorite quote is, that being the case, how shall I proceed? So it is what it is. What are you going to do about it? You have those 3 choices. Don't wallow in it. Don't sit in it. Allow yourself to grieve if you need to. Be crabby for a hot minute, and then get on with one of those 3 choices. Because the rest, it doesn't make your life any better. And so now I just try to push the fast forward button and get right to those 3 choices. What's it going to be? Right? Remove yourself,
Yes.
get over it, or find a solution. And I can get to that space a lot faster now.
Mhm. Those are great. I'm going to be thinking of that with Wendy.
Are you trying to remove me?
Do we need to switch seats? Remove yourself.
I'm sure there's other people that would be happy to be on this show, Trisha.
Get over it. Can you just get over it?
Yes, I'm over
Get
it, Beth.
over it.
Okay,
I'm over
just
it.
get
Thank you
over
for
it.
the advice.
Just
You
get
know
over
what?
it.
That is, I love that though, because in all aspects, it is very simple.
It really is.
It
Yes.
really is very simple. But again, we make it harder.
Oh my gosh, the
what
number
it
of
is.
things that if we can name it with our ego and
Oh.
insecurity, that we can get over, that I can get over,
Mm.
is remarkable. Like 97% of my issues are like, is that really an issue, or am I telling myself a story in my head about this?
So
So true, Beth.
obviously, it sounds like you're a very self aware person. That to me is the first step to any recovery in anything. What had to happen to make you more self aware? Because, I mean, if you think about it, in our 20s, we're pretty selfish. That's
Right.
just the way it goes.
Right.
Then usually we're having kids and we're just all about them. But like, when was that moment where you really realized like being more self aware of what works for you, what doesn't?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think self awareness, we tend to think of it like with humility, right? That this person is addressing the things that they need to work on. I think that's part of it. But I think in a lot of cases, and in mine, self awareness is also having an accurate sense of self, which means not, not sort of overstating it, but not humbly less, not looking at yourself as less than. And there were a lot of things in my life that led me to feel like I wasn't worth it. I didn't have worth. I didn't have esteem. And so, self awareness comes on both sides of that coin. It's not just about having a sense of like, knock yourself down a peg and get your ego out of check. Yes, that is true in some cases, but it's also acknowledge that you have worth and you are enough and you have self-esteem and it's not ever going to come from an outside source. That I feel like that side of the coin, I had to really trudge through and learn the hard way and still continue to learn. It's not like I'm like, cool,
Yes.
good thing I
I'm
got my
fixed.
self-esteem now,
Oh my God. Yeah, you
but
don't just wake up with it one morning.
no. So
Yeah.
going through hard things, um, you know, brought me to a really great therapist, and that has helped a lot. I call him Cardigan when I talk about him publicly. That's his nickname, and he knows that. So sometimes I'll share stories and say, "Oh, I spoke at this event, and Cardigan said this and that."
Yes.
But he
Yeah.
really, really helped me work on self-esteem and worth, and being able to make decisions based on like, even if I just take one step removed and say, how would I treat someone else who did this same thing, thought this same thing? How would I treat my best friend? How would I treat my daughters? And the standard I was holding myself to, it was abysmal how I would talk to myself, how and so instead of listening to that voice, now I have a better sense of being able to say, well, that's not true, don't speak to her, even if I have to get in the third person,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's not true
Yeah.
about her. She's not like that, she's not. So self-awareness comes in a lot of forms, but for me, I had to really work on that self-worth piece.
That's so funny you say that because I have 3 daughters, and I remember once I had them, and I would hear them I would always say, "Don't talk like that, don't say that," and then in my head, I was saying things, and one
Right.
day it just hit me like, I would never say that to my daughter. Why would I say it to myself? It's
And they mirror so much,
Oh
right?
my gosh. Yes, they
Right.
do.
And we think about, leading so many girls, right? I'm in an organization that leads girls, and the mental health crisis for girls, for youth,
Mm,
is just off the charts right now, right? It's the new epidemic. And what are we modeling as their
yes.
adults, right? It's not just what I
Yes.
say, it's not what's in our curriculum books, our badge lineup. That stuff matters. But
Yes.
what's more important is, how do we treat ourselves? How do we act toward one another? And that's what they see. That's what they're going to mirror.
Oh my gosh, Beth, that literally gave me goosebumps. Wendy and I talk about that all the time on how we treat each other as women
Mm-hmm.
because they do mirror that. And,
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, I'm like, my goodness, are females born with this? Like almost at times in our life pitted against each other,
Mm-hmm.
but again, they're mirroring or they're doing what they have saw or seen.
Right.
And it can be very tragic. And like you said, the epidemic for young females right now and taking their own lives,
Mhm.
and
at
it's
very
just
young ages.
horrible,
Like,
horrible,
It is.
horrible. And that's where you have to have strong role models
Mhm.
and young women that can come to us and be very transparent and honest with what they're going through.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer everybody should have therapy.
Mhm.
I
Right.
am. I
Right.
am.
Exactly. I think it helps us so much with that self-awareness, because really loving people in our lives are really good about mirroring back what we're putting out. So, oh, this thing was so unfair. And then your best friend said, yeah, that's so unfair, and a therapist isn't going to do that. right?
No.
They're going to put it back to accountability. And when they
Yes.
teach us to be accountable, instead of mirroring back
Mhm.
these feelings that make us feel good,
Yes.
then that's when we can really grow. So I absolutely agree. I mean, a medical doctor would never just agree with everything you say, like, right? Oh, I feel like my blood sugar is low. Oh yeah, I'm sure I didn't know. They're gonna do the thoughtful work to make sure that they have some accountability there. And a
Yes.
great therapist is going to do the same thing. It's so
Yeah.
important.
My husband, Jeremy, talks about that also because he's like, I live with you.
Mhm.
I want to say and do what's going to make you happy.
Right, right. They have some skin in the game, right? Like they're
Yeah,
not an
yeah.
objective bystander.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's always like, I'm the one that has to sleep with you.
Yes.
And I want to wake up in the morning without a knife in my back. Yes. So
Right.
let's go to therapy.
Yes. The objective is different for a therapist, right? When they are like the third party who's objective and their only goal is for you to be your most fulfilled self, they can sometimes point us in new and different directions.
You might want to share Cardigan's card with Jeremy.
Yeah, right.
Is he taking new people?
He just might be. I'm not sure. Yeah, he's so good. Yeah.
What is on the horizon for our Queen Beth?
Oh my
What is on
gosh.
the horizon for you?
Oh, well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I want to live my most fulfilling life. And I feel like I get to do that every day right now. And I don't need to see I kind of think about it now like I'm floating in a river, right? And doing one of those river floats, and it's a beautiful sunny day, and you're just relaxed. You have a cold beverage, and now for me, it's like an NA beverage,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't care what's around the next bend. I want to be fully present. The more I can be mindful and to be present with who I'm with, what I'm doing, the more fulfilled I am. I don't need to have so many regrets about the past. I don't need to have so much anxiety about the future. So for me, but it takes work to stay in the present. It takes a lot of work. It doesn't come naturally. And so it's partly being present. Also, I feel like my calling, if I can say that, is to try to move the needle and create impact on these topics that my story aligns with. And so for me, again, the story evolves over time, but for me right now, the story is about mental well-being, workplace wellness, things that really matter. And the more I'm transparent about it, I mean, my gosh, the number of things that I talk about publicly that I have screwed up, dropped the ball on, done wrong, don't know what I'm talking about, is enormous. That list is really, really long. I always think about those big awards events where people get up there and they say these glowing things and their
Yes.
resumes are a mile long. And I'm like, I just dream about the day where I can be on that podium and be like, here we go.
Uh-huh.
I am a misfit introvert. Here are all the things I screwed up, dropped the ball on, just to like create transparency.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Yes.
but then I think about the
Yes.
impact that has on other people. And if we can just break that facade, not
Yes.
just for strangers, but
Yes.
for my own children, right? They know
Yes.
because when they see that I can drop the ball and screw things up and be imperfect and misstep in every season, it allows them the freedom to do that, right? I don't want them to have this threshold of perfection.
Oh my goodness.
And instead, I want to be like, okay, let's here's what I screwed up today. If we could just start bragging about that stuff,
Yes.
the times we failed, the times we tried, the
Yes.
times we let someone down, because it shows our humanity. And it's such a farce to pretend like that's not true.
It is.
So that's what's on my horizon, to lean into just being fully authentic, and as long as it resonates, and I want to make the world better. It sounds cheesy, but if that's
I
my little
agree.
corner to do it,
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
love that.
And when your oldest is a senior, and
Mhm.
so I'm sure you're noticing already, like, oh, this is the last this. Oh, this is the last this. So really being fully present just in that.
Yeah.
So speaking of 18-year-olds, I have a picture here.
Uh-huh.
And so those of you who are not watching on YouTube and you're listening, you'll just have to look on social media. So this is 18-year-old Beth.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to hop in a little DeLorean and
Uh-huh.
we're going to do some time traveling. Okay.
Goodness, it looks just like your daughter's.
It does.
It does.
It does.
And I love because it's like she's looking at you. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So we're going to hop in a time machine
Okay.
and we just have a few minutes. What advice do you want to give her?
Oh
In
my
this-
gosh.
Yeah. What would you tell her?
That you're okay just as you are. It almost gets me choked up,
I
right?
know.
Because it's life is so hard.
Yeah.
And I was so uncertain, and had a lot of hardships growing up, had a lot of love and support too. So not to, understate that part of it too. But I felt so uncertain about my place, about who I was, if I had worth.
Yeah.
And I've just always felt like I had to earn it. As long as I'm the best one, as long as I get good grades, as long as I'm the MVP, as long as I'm number one, as long as as long as I look a certain way, then I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I wish I could just go back to her and be like, you're just fine as you are. And no matter how much you try to earn it, you're not going to anyway. It's an unwinnable game, right? The goalpost moves all the time. It's arbitrary and it's stupid and it's outside of what really matters. And if I could just get her to see that, and if I could get other kids to see that, my kids to see that, the second you give your yardstick of worth to someone else, you will never measure up ever.
Hmm. I love that. Okay, now some levity.
A wheel.
Oh my gosh, what
Have
are
you,
we
have
spinning
you heard, have you
for?
heard about the wheel?
No, I've seen
Okay.
somebody spin it on social, but I don't know
Yes,
what's at
yes.
stake here.
So-
It's the wheel of torture.
Oh. Okay.
Again, that's for the late night show.
Oh shit, I forgot.
So set that there. So we're gonna have you spin
Mr. Producer,
The wheel
didn't
of
remind me.
vices. What vice are we? Oh my gosh, here we go.
Bring out the whips and chains. No, just kidding.
So I love game shows. And
Yes.
so, we want to talk about hardship, but we also want to have fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
So give it a good rip.
Okay.
Let's see what we get.
Favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Oh my gosh,
You did not get that.
Yes, I did.
I just added that today.
Is this staged?
That is amazing.
If that's a ripoff, I'm respinning.
Yes, spin again. That is so crazy.
Talking about
I
cookies.
just added. If you get it again, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
Favorite comedy?
Oh,
Is this like a show or
Anything.
anything that just makes you belly laugh and like you just want to tell everybody they need to watch it. 'Cause
Oh my gosh, so
brings you
many.
so much
Comedy's
happiness.
my favorite. I think my favorite comedian right now, and there's a lot, but is and I might even say his name wrong, Nate Bargatze, and he has a really, really dry sense of humor. And of course I see him a lot on TikTok, but he has some stand-up comedy specials. Eliza is really Eliza Schlesinger, she's really
Yes,
funny. I
yes.
really like her stuff.
Yeah.
And then as far as like comedies, I mean, you can't beat the classic like Schitt's Creek. It's really, really good. Just really good. So good. Yes. Yes.
So great.
And my favorite podcaster is Dax Shepard. And oh my gosh, the way he talks, and then
Love him.
he can get me belly laughing in some
Yes.
episodes. Really, like I'll be driving down the road, I can just be belly laughing. So yeah. So there's just a couple.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Well, and you guys talked about my TikToks. I think I'm hilarious, but
You
what I
are.
will say is my kids don't think so, and they think it is just awful that I make these videos or post it, or even sometimes other loved ones, my partner or my mom or someone will be like, oh, like they're not picking up what I'm putting down, right?
I think you're funny.
There's like really subtle humor there, and I'm like, they're not getting it, are you? Like, yeah, so not everything lands is what I've learned,
Oh my
Well, we
gosh.
think we're funny.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we are.
Right.
That's all that matters. So, tell me how many days? Over 500.
563.
563.
Yes.
For someone out there who is on day one,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give?
Well, I'm not an expert. I always say like I'm on my own little path of stumbling. So I think, get some support and get some resources, whatever that looks like to someone. I didn't go through AA, but it's an amazing program that people have a lot of success with. And if I had it to redo, maybe I would, because what I find is the journey of sobriety, it changes. It doesn't necessarily get easier. And the things that I face now at day 563 are different than I faced at day, 17. But the challenges are different, just like the seasons of life change. So get some support, whatever that looks like, right? And I have a great therapist, and but I really had to recognize why I drank. And if you can remove the longing to drink, and I was really softening the edges of life. I was putting this filter of numbness on because I didn't want to experience all those hard edges. And it's the way I coped. But it wasn't necessarily sustainable or healthy, for my life. And I think we get stuck on labels like alcoholic, or if someone's life isn't at rock bottom, that means they don't have a problem, right?
Yeah.
And instead of reframing it and say, is this making my life better? Do I feel better? Am I more fulfilled? Do I feel healthier, happier, more connected to other people when I'm drinking? And if so, great. Like, I wish I was you, right? There are things I miss about it. Of course there are,
Yeah.
right? That's why people do it.
Yeah.
But if that's not the case, you don't have to have some drastic label, drastic rock bottom to change your behavior. And so for me, like that really helped enable me to say, like, just because from the outside it doesn't look like I have a problem, I know that I have a problem because it's not making my life better. It's making it worse, you know?
I
And I
love
had to
that.
acknowledge, when is it a craving? When is it a trigger? And when is it association? And figuring out, there are times I associate drinking with it. There are times I'm triggered by emotions. And there are times I crave it because of what I'm doing. And so
Yeah.
figuring out the difference in those three also really helped me. I always associated, when I'm at the lake, we drink. When I'm
Yeah.
at a golf course, we drink.
Yeah.
So creating a relapse prevention plan has also really helped me. I know my high risk timeframes now. I know that when I feel a certain way, okay, that's high risk. Let's go into my relapse prevention plan. But if you just, it's sort of like anything else. If you go on a healthy eating plan or something with your career, you would never expect to do it without resources or knowledge.
Yeah.
And yet, willpower alone is not the answer.
Oh,
Willpower has a finite bucket. And when we think we can change our behavior with willpower, that's where I think a lot of us fall short. And then we shame ourselves because of
yes.
it.
Mhm.
I'm so awful. I'm so weak. I'm so terrible because I didn't have enough willpower. And in fact, that's just not the answer.
Yeah. When you shared your sobriety journey with people, did you have any people say to you, "Well, what do you mean? You really didn't drink that much," or "I didn't know you had a problem," or did you ever hear that type of feedback or have those
Definitely. I
situations?
definitely heard that. And I hear all the time, people will say, "How long do you think you'll go before you feel like you can drink? Like, how long,
Oh,
when will it be enough?" And instead of sort of embracing, because they can't, imagine, and I was in the same boat, I can't imagine a life that could be as fulfilling and happy without it. And so they're like, okay, when's the cutoff that okay, now you've got it handled, right? Now life's easier, your season of life has changed. And that's just not going to be in the cards for me, as it isn't for most people who struggle with addiction, right? You can't just go back and be like, no, I'm just going to kind of be addicted, right? That's just not usually a thing. And
yeah,
most of the data says most people are not successful when they do that. So that's not in my plan.
yeah,
Let's hope that doesn't happen. And I'm
yeah,
putting a lot of effort. I know that when I first wrote about it, when I first became public about it, I was 6 months sober. And I didn't write about it on Facebook because Facebook's like the people I know, right?
yeah.
It's the people that are my friends and my neighbors, and I sit with them in the bleachers with them. So I did this little post on LinkedIn, and not for any intentional purpose. I just, because I'm introverted and because I'm in kind of a lonely seat in life, I like to write. Writing's my
Yeah.
cathartic outlet. And so to put it somewhere, I put it on LinkedIn. I'm like, nobody's gonna see it on LinkedIn. And you guys, that post went viral.
Yes.
That's the post that
Yes.
sort of like
I
cracked the
remember.
seal. More than 2 million people saw it.
Yes.
And so I was like, oops, like, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
I guess it's out now
Yeah.
that, I talk about sobriety and I talk about mental health, but it wasn't because I like intended to be some sort of spokesperson. I was just writing my feelings on my 6-month anniversary on a platform that I thought nobody would see, you know?
Right.
So I did start to get some feedback for sure, mostly positive.
Yes.
And of course, like, it's the internet, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the internet. There's trolls about
Oh,
everything,
goodness gracious.
And then I had this like fear of like, what will people think?
Yeah.
Oops, now that
Yeah.
people
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I finally, I got over that real quick. Like, I am who I am. If it holds me back from any future opportunity in life, then that wasn't the opportunity for me. You
Yes.
know,
Mhm.
if someone's gonna think that because I wear my humanity on my sleeve,
Yeah.
I'm not any more human than anyone else. I just
Yeah.
happen not to hide it always.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of women recently. I didn't drink for the longest time. And then I feel like with networking the last 3 years,
Mhm.
it's kind of like everywhere.
Mhm.
Right.
And I just don't, it doesn't make me feel good. So I've talked to a lot of women that maybe don't have a problem, but they're like, I don't feel good anymore when I do this. Drinking at almost 50 and drinking at 20 is totally feels different in the
Hmm.
body. And I've talked to so many women that just don't want to do it anymore. But I think there's just so much pressure, like in the business world, like you said, on the golf course, all these
Yeah.
things. It's always about
Mhm.
alcohol.
Mhm.
And so why can't we just normalize, like, we don't necessarily have to have that.
Right. The alcohol is the center of so many things, and you don't always
Yes.
notice it until you're the one not drinking,
Yes.
right?
I'm
And
sure.
then there's these questions. Either they assume that A, you're like an alcoholic and your life fell apart, or B, you're
Yeah.
pregnant, right? Those are the
Yes.
two
Yes.
assumptions,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
It can't be,
Yes.
and it can't just be because
I don't want
of
to
your
drink.
overall wellness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's got to be because of that. It's centered on so many, and the big galas and the big events. There's, now I notice, but there's no non-alcoholic. There's no mocktails listed. Oftentimes there's no NA beers.
Mhm.
So it's like you can either drink alcohol or have a Coke. Those are your options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still want to have fun, pretty drinks. They just,
Right, right,
Yes.
right.
right?
My goodness. Yes. I wish I didn't need food.
Right, right,
That's where, I mean, that is an addiction for me. There
right.
are many things that are triggered for that,
Mm-hmm.
but you need food.
Right.
So that's where my journey is
Mm-hmm.
right now, and it is hard as fuck.
It's really
It
hard.
is hard.
And you surround yourself with things. There's so many reasons why we do the things we do. And I think about moments where I've had seasons where, let's say I cut out sugar for a season, right?
Yeah.
And then you're with your besties. And then somebody wants to go, let's say your thing is you go to dinner and then you get dessert. Well, then when you're the one who's not going to eat dessert, somehow
Mhm.
it ruins the experience for everyone else, right?
Why
Like
is
there's this
that?
collective, well, it's true with alcohol too.
Yes,
You don't
it
want
is
to be
true,
with the
Beth.
bummer person who's not going to drink
Mhm.
when everyone's like, let's go out for a glass of wine.
Yeah.
You know, like somehow it ruins their experience or perceived.
Mhm.
And the same is true with
Yes,
decadent food.
it
And
is.
we connect it with these great experiences and think, oh, without this thing, it's not going to be as
Yes.
great.
Yeah, but
There's a
it's
lot
not
of
the
pressure.
truth.
Right.
But
It's
it is not
not.
the truth.
It's really not.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's really, really challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, we could have a whole segment on that.
Oh my gosh. We could. We really could.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just love food. Like, you don't want to
Yes.
give up stuff you love. Like,
Right.
Exactly.
food is good.
Right. And
Yeah.
our bodies and our brains are so smart that they want us to survive. So they give us this dopamine hits for these
Yes.
things
Oh.
that, 1,000 years ago helped keep us alive, right? To crave these things, to help us seek them. And alcohol and food, these highs that we get, food.
Mhm.
So our bodies are geared for this. And
Yes.
so we have to have these mechanisms to overcome this really hard.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
like you said, like planning for, we are going to have a bad day. Planning. What does that
Yeah.
look like?
Right.
Mhm.
Just kinda,
Having coping mechanisms,
Right.
having a support team
Right.
is you need that. You need that.
100%.
You need that.
And of course, I find other unhealthy ways to fill my time and energy, right? Like my go-to when I'm stressed, obviously it was to have a cold beer, which would be so great, and I can't have it. Okay. So you know what I go to now? Chips and dip, Ruffles and AE dip. And I am not kidding you. I will eat the whole bag and then I will feel sick.
party dip.
And I can't stop. AE party dip and
Yes.
Ruffles.
I know.
I can't stop. It's like a joke in my house. And
Yes.
with my friends, they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, you guys,
Yeah.
I fell off the wagon. I ate the Ruffles again, and because I have no shut off switch,
Yeah.
but somehow it feels so good
It
in the
does.
moment.
Oh yeah.
Why does my dumb brain do that?
Because they know they put good shit in it.
I
Yeah.
know.
They
Yeah,
know.
they do. I love
Yes.
Doritos and cottage cheese.
Okay, together like a scooper.
Yes.
It's a scooping situation.
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What's yours?
Just straight up nacho
Oh.
cheese Doritos.
Yes.
Okay.
But the salt and pepper cottage cheese,
Okay. Okay.
the black pepper.
I haven't tried it, but I'm,
it's
I'm
so good.
receptive.
It's
I need
so
another
good.
thing to get, another vice to get addicted to. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm salivating just thinking about
Okay,
it.
Ruffles and party dip, like that's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, cookies are great, but
Mhm.
my sweet tooth has kind of disappeared. It's all about the salt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
All about the salt.
Yeah, me too. The salt.
Okay, so we're talking about food. We could talk all night.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for not only being vulnerable with us, but just vulnerable with audiences. And I just feel like so many people are struggling, and not that we want other people to be struggling, but when we hear, oh my gosh, they struggle with that too. So do they. Like it just makes you not feel alone, I think is what's so important. And nobody wants to talk about the hardship, but it's the hardship that makes us who we are. That,
Right.
the hardship is what
You learn from.
makes you want to change, which makes you, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it'd be pretty boring if we didn't have hard stuff happen to
Right.
us.
I just feel so grateful not only to be here, but to get to talk about these things and to have it received by people. I had an incident, I don't know, it was maybe a year ago, and someone, oh my gosh, ready for this? They unfriended me, right, on Facebook. Of course,
Oh,
then I
shit,
did
your
the,
life's over.
I know I did the shame
Get the-
spiral of like, what did
get
I
the Ruffles.
do? Why did they hate me? Get the Ruffles. What did I do to them? And so I was talking to my besties about it, Nora and Gina, everyone knows that I, tell them everything. And and they were like, one of them, that we give each other a lot of direct feedback, and they said, I think that sometimes people think that when you post something, because I post a lot, that that you think you're all that. And I literally like spit my drink out. I'm like, that I think I'm all that. I'm like, oh my gosh, if anyone has that perception, like that is like the far opposite of what I think. So I feel so grateful when people comment or respond when I talk about hard things, because it helps me feel seen, like they know, like, oh, I
Yes.
see you, sister. I trust me. We don't think you think you're all
Yes.
that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be,
Yes.
it's hard to know that balance. I want to be authentic and post things, but not because I wanted people to think I'm all that. I want people to know that I struggle with half the
Yeah.
time thinking I'm garbage. And
Yeah.
I want them to know that it's this balance of humanity, not that, I don't know. It's so interesting. So I just feel so grateful to have women, particularly, right? Because they don't seem to have all the ulterior motives that men have.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that connect and see that and say, hey, I see you and I've got your back. And I love doing that for other women with no ulterior motive, just to be like, hey, I'm on your team. Whatever direction you're going, I'm cheering for you.
When we're off air, you can give me her name and address. Just kidding.
Thank you. Right?
I'm sorry. All I could think of was, you are all that in a bag of Ruffles chips.
And yes,
AE
chips and AE Marty dip and cottage cheese.
Yes.
You're all that in a tub of cottage cheese.
Bring on the
We're going
fucking
to send
chips.
this to AE and see if we can get
Yes,
some free dip.
sponsorship.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe you could find like a dip for the cookie.
Oh, sure. I would make it happen. I would.
Oh,
We need like
if
some
anybody
kind of, like,
would, you would.
salty cookie, right? Like,
Yes.
wouldn't that be good?
But I agree with what you say. Like, I used to worry about what other people think. But if someone thinks that I post too much or do this and they don't like it, that's the
Right.
beauty. You cannot follow me.
Yeah, I guess I'm not
And
for them.
I'm not.
Okay.
I mean,
Right.
But I will try to friend request them again.
Exactly. I will make every effort to get to the bottom of this issue and find out what happened and resolve it and make them like
I will
me. I will
send a
make them
picture.
like me.
I will send a letter.
I will win them over if it's the last thing I do.
no, you don't have to.
No, God, no.
No.
Bye.
And exactly. And with that said, how amazing if we would have known the stuff that we know now
Right.
as our 18-year-old self.
Right.
Sincerely.
Exactly.
But you have to go through those things. You have to go through those things.
Exactly. The more impact you're going to have, the greater impact you're going to have, the greater risk for sort of volatile reactions from others.
Yes.
And the more narrow and sort of, vanilla, medium, safe we act. And I think about all the people that I look up to, that I love to be around. None of them are safe and vanilla and normal, right? It's the people that stand for something and are something.
Yeah.
And so, but it's so hard to teach that. The people want to fit in and they want to belong with everyone and everyone to like them. And I'm like, has the opposite effect.
Yes,
When you're
yes.
so neutral, nobody is attracted to that. Yeah. We're getting ready to start the after hours episode.
Yes.
Can't get the other spinning wheel out. I saw the questions on that other wheel.
Bring out the leather.
Bring out the cottage cheese.
Mr.
and the
Producer, bring out the leather.
Doritos. We're gonna get crazy. We're gonna get crazy with the chips and it's gonna
Now
get
no
nuts.
one's going to want to watch the regular show. They're going to want to watch the After Dark. And then there's pressure that we're going to have to actually have an After Dark show.
That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it.
Yes.
That's where her mind goes all the time. After dark. After dark. I think even in our previous videos, you would talk about After Dark.
This show's good, but I can't wait to see the After Dark.
Yeah.
version.
Oh my goodness. Well, my
you.
friend, we just adore you. Thank you. Thank
Likewise.
you. I adore you so
Likewise.
much.
So
Yeah.
with that, it's a wrap.
Your Sasstastic Life is produced by Apex VO. Go to apexvo.com. That's APEXXVO.